Do you really know who you are? Or is your identity just a trick played by your brain? Think about it. Everything you believe defines you. Your name, your history, your choices, might be nothing more than an elaborate illusion. Science has already shown that the feeling of a fixed and continuous self is just a mental construct. But what happens when that construct collapses? Imagine waking up one day with no memories. Would you still be you? Extreme neurological cases show that identity can change or even disappear with a simple brain injury. Thomas Metzinger, philosopher and neuroscientist, calls this the ego tunnel. The mind creates an illusion of individuality to make sense of existence. But this illusion vanishes the moment your brain stops working. If this is true, then who are we really? And more importantly, what happens when we die? Many people seek comforting answers, but the truth may be more liberating than we imagine. Death, far from being a mystery, is a simple biological process. The problem is that reality can be difficult to accept. In this video, we will dismantle the lies we tell ourselves about life, identity, and death. But be careful. Some answers may be uncomfortable. Are you ready to face the truth? If you believe you are the same person you were 10 years ago, think again. Every second, billions of neurons in your brain fire electrical signals, reshaping memories, creating new connections, and erasing old ones. You are not a fixed entity. You are a constantly changing flow of experiences. The science of consciousness suggests that the was-elf is not something we have, but something we do. Metzinger explains that our mind constructs a narrative to give us the illusion of continuity. But this narrative can be disrupted. Cases of patients with severe amnesia, like Clive Waring, show that without memory, identity simply dissolves. What if identity is just a side effect of how we perceive reality? Studies using brain scans reveal that the brain makes decisions before we are even conscious of them. This means that the feeling of making choices may just be a trick of the mind. If we are not truly in control of our own decisions, to what extent can we say we are truly someone? Now take this idea to an even more extreme scenario. What if one day your brain simply stopped? What would be left of you? The answer may be uncomfortable, but it can also be liberating. If your identity is just a construction of the brain, what happens when it stops working? The short answer, it disappears. Science has never found evidence that consciousness continues after death. When neural activity ceases, the self ceases to exist. There is no separate entity that carries on. But why is this idea so hard to accept? Because our brain is wired to fear the end. Studies show that the human mind struggles to conceive of its own non-existence. This is why so many cultures have created myths about the afterlife. Fear of nothingness pushes us to seek comfort in stories. Near-death experiences are often cited as proof that something survives. But neuroscience has an explanation. In critical moments, the brain releases a surge of neurotransmitters that can cause visions, feelings of peace, and the sensation of leaving the body. All of these effects can be reproduced in a lab with no need for supernatural explanations. The fact is, there is no evidence that you go anywhere after death. But this doesn't have to be terrifying. Before you were born, you did not suffer from non-existence. So why should you fear the same state after death? The problem is not the end of identity, but how we cling to it. And this is where optimistic nihilism comes in. If nothing of us survives after death, and our identity is a temporary construction, what does that mean for the way we live? For some, this idea may seem depressing. Traditional nihilism argues that if life has no objective meaning, then everything is pointless. But is that really the only way to see it? Optimistic nihilism offers a different perspective. If no meaning is imposed on us, we are free to create our own. Albert Camus wrote that we must imagine Sisyphus, a man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill forever, as happy. Why? Because by accepting his condition and deciding to find joy even in the absurd, he becomes the master of his own existence. The absence of a cosmic purpose does not mean life is empty. On the contrary, it means you can fill that space however you choose. Existentialist philosophies like those of Sartre emphasize that we are radically free. This freedom may be terrifying, but it is also liberating. With no predetermined fate, every moment can be lived fully. If nothing has a definitive meaning, then every gesture, a hug, a conversation, a sunset, has exactly the meaning we choose to give it. The lack of a universal purpose is not a void, but a blank canvas. Now the final question. How should we live knowing this? If your identity is an illusion and life has no imposed purpose, how do you move forward? The answer is simple. By living fully. Instead of searching for an absolute meaning, we can find purpose in the small things, in human connections, in art, in learning, in the simple fact that we exist. The freedom that optimistic nihilism offers may seem overwhelming at first, but it is a gift. There are no cosmic rules binding you, no universal expectations to fulfill. You are free to shape your own journey, without fear of doing it wrong. Instead of seeing death as a tragic end, we can accept it as part of the cycle. Knowing that everything is impermanent teaches us to value the present. If nothing lasts forever, then each moment holds unique significance. And that is the beauty of existence. In the end, the question is not, what is the meaning of life? But rather, what meaning will you choose to give it? If your identity is just a story you tell yourself, then make it a story worth living.